The Silent Guardians. The archival chamber of the Stellar Alliance hung suspended in space like a crystalline tear, its translucent walls reflecting the light of distant stars. Within its depths, Grand Archivist Zenaval's tentacles trembled as she reviewed the latest reports from the frontier worlds. Another system had gone dark, consumed by the advancing void swarm. The Stellar Alliance, a confederation of 17 spacefaring species, had long considered themselves the pinnacle of galactic civilization. Their quantum computers could process the sum of universal knowledge in microseconds. Their energy shields could withstand the force of a supernova. Their bioengineered bodies had conquered death itself. But none of that mattered against the void swarm. The parasitic entities had emerged from the depths of intergalactic space 6 cycles ago, and nothing in the Alliance's vast technological arsenal could stop them. They consumed energy in all forms, adapted to every weapon, and transformed infected beings into mindless drones that served the collective. Grand Archivist, a voice chimed, interrupting Zenaval's grim contemplation. The Emergency Council requests your presence. Zenaval glided through the corridors of the station, her crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the soft bioluminescent lighting. She entered the council chamber, where representatives of the surviving Alliance species gathered around a holographic display of the galaxy. First Speaker Colren, his metallic scales dulled with stress, gestured to the map with one of his primary limbs. The swarm has breached the outer rim defenses. The Helios matrix has failed. The quantum wall has collapsed. At current velocity, they will reach the core worlds within 3 cycles. Surely the Thought Collective has formulated a solution. Asked Representative Mira XE, her energy form flickering with anxiety. The Collective's simulations have run billions of scenarios, Colren replied. None end in victory. We are too predictable, too reliant on our technology. The swarm adapts faster than we can innovate. Zenaval moved forward, her tentacles extending toward the hologram. There may be another way, she said softly. In my studies of emerging civilizations, I have encountered a species that defies conventional analysis, a species that consistently achieves the impossible through means our most advanced AI cannot predict. The chamber fell silent as she manipulated the display, zooming in on a spiral arm in the galactic periphery. A small blue-green planet appeared, orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. They call themselves humans, she continued. Their technology is primitive by our standards. Their lifespans are brief. Their bodies are fragile. Yet they possess qualities that could be the key to our survival. Primitives. Mira XE's energy field pulsed with dismissal. What could they possibly offer against a threat that has defeated our supreme technology? Zenaval projected a series of historical records into the center of the chamber. Images flickered through the air, humans surviving in extreme environments, turning devastating setbacks into unlikely victories, solving problems through methods that defied logical analysis. They are adaptable in ways we cannot comprehend, she explained. Where we rely on quantum computing, they use what they call intuition. Where we seek perfect solutions, they embrace imperfection and make it work. Most importantly, they possess a quality they call determination, an irrational refusal to accept defeat even when all logic indicates failure is inevitable. First Speaker Colren studied the images, his compound eyes reflecting the light of distant Earth. You suggest we ask these humans for help? Would they even understand the threat? They not only would understand it, Zenaval replied, but based on my analysis of their cultural archives, they have been preparing for something like this for centuries through what they call science fiction. They have imagined every possible scenario of first contact, invasion, and interstellar war. In their minds, they have already fought this battle countless times. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some members dismissed the idea outright, while others cautiously considered the unprecedented suggestion. As the arguments raged, Zenaval added one final piece of data to the display, a statistical analysis of human conflict resolution. "Look," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "In 78% of major human conflicts, the technologically inferior side achieved victory through unconventional tactics. They call it asymmetric warfare. Against an enemy that adapts to and defeats our superior technology, perhaps inferior technology wielded in superior ways, is exactly what we need." First Speaker Cole Wren raised his limbs for silence. "The concept is uncomfortable," he admitted. "But we are beyond the luxury of comfort. Send the envoys. Let us see if these humans are truly as remarkable as your research suggests." As the council dispersed, Zeneval remained, watching the holographic Earth slowly rotate. In all her centuries of study, she had never encountered a species quite like humans. They were chaotic, often violent, sometimes self-destructive. Yet they possessed an almost mystical ability to transcend their limitations. She could only hope that ability would be enough to save them all. The human factor. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the ESS Prometheus, watching as her fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Andromeda Arm. 40 ships, Earth's first interstellar battle group, represented humanity's answer to the Stellar Alliance's desperate plea for help. The ships themselves would have looked primitive to Alliance engineers, blocky, utilitarian vessels built more for function than form. Their hulls were thick slabs of titanium-tungsten alloy, rather than the crystalline quantum materials favored by the Alliance. Their weapons were a mix of railguns, nuclear warheads, and plasma cannons instead of elegant energy beams and gravity weapons. "Status report," Chen called out, her eyes still fixed on the starfield before her. "All ships reporting ready, Admiral." Lieutenant Rodriguez answered from his tactical station. "The Alliance vessels are maintaining position at coordinates Charlie 9. Chen nodded, studying the holographic tactical display that showed the position of both human and Alliance ships. The Alliance vessels were beautiful things, all sweeping curves and shimmering energy fields. They looked like they belonged in an art museum rather than a battlefield. "Open a channel to the Alliance flagship," she ordered. The holographic form of High Commander Xel Varen materialized on the bridge, his crystalline body refracting light in complex patterns. "Admiral Chen," he greeted, "your fleet's arrival is most timely. Our long-range sensors detect a void swarm convergence forming in the Helix Nebula. They will arrive within 12 standard hours. Then we have time to brief your commanders on our strategy," Chen replied. "Though I should warn you, you may find our methods unconventional." The Alliance commander's crystalline form flickered, their equivalent of a confused blink. "We have reviewed your tactical proposals. Surely you don't intend to engage the swarm in close combat. Their adaptive shielding can't adapt to what it can't predict," Chen interrupted. "Your forces have been fighting with perfect logic, perfect precision. The swarm learns from patterns. We're going to show them something they've never seen before. Controlled chaos." Hours later, as the void swarm emerged from hyperspace, they encountered not the precise, geometrical formations they had come to expect from Alliance forces, but a scattered, seemingly random arrangement of ships. The human vessels appeared to be moving almost erratically, maintaining no discernible pattern. The swarm, operating on its collective intelligence, began its standard adaptation protocols. But there was nothing standard about what happened next. "All ships, execute Operation Thunderstrike," Chen commanded. The human fleet erupted into action. Ships that had appeared to be drifting aimlessly suddenly accelerated in coordinated patterns that looked chaotic, but were actually carefully choreographed. Railguns fired streams of tungsten rods that the swarm's energy shields couldn't properly deflect. Nuclear warheads detonated in precisely calculated patterns, creating waves of energy that disrupted the swarm's hive-mind connection. Most importantly, every human ship was operating semi-independently, following a general strategy but adapting moment by moment based on their commander's instincts and initiative. There was no central control for the swarm to target, no single pattern to adapt to. "Remarkable," Selvaron commented, watching from his flagship as the human fleet danced through space like a swarm of their own. Such imperfection, yet somehow it works. That's because we're not trying to be perfect, Chen replied, calling out new orders as she spotted opportunities in the chaos of battle. We're trying to be unpredictable. Your technology is far superior to ours, Commander. But sometimes the best weapon isn't the most advanced one. It's the one your enemy doesn't expect. The battle raged for hours, and for the first time since they had emerged from deep space, the Void Swarm began to retreat. Their adaptive capabilities, so effective against the Alliance's predictable tactics, struggled to cope with the constantly changing patterns of human warfare. But victory had come at a cost. Several human ships had been destroyed, their crews making the ultimate sacrifice to protect a civilization they had only just met. As Chen looked at the casualty reports, she was reminded of something she had told the Alliance Council during their first meeting. You asked why humans would fight for aliens we barely know, she had said. It's simple. Because we can. Because it's right. And because if there's one thing humans have learned from our own history, it's that the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. The battle was won, but Chen knew this was only the beginning. The Void Swarm would learn, would adapt, but so would humanity. It was what they did best. As she watched rescue operations begin and damage control teams deploy, Chen began planning for the next engagement. The Swarm had just learned that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. Soon, they would learn why every human child knew the story of David and Goliath, and why humans had always rooted for the underdog. Breaking point. Dr. Maya Patel had never seen anything quite like it. The specimen floating in the containment field before her defied conventional physics, a fragment of the Void Swarm captured during the last battle, twisted and writhed in patterns that seemed to mock three-dimensional space. The laboratory aboard the ESS Prometheus was a strange hybrid of human ingenuity and Alliance technology. Holographic displays showed real-time analysis of the specimen, while old-fashioned microscopes and chemical analysis equipment lined the walls. Maya had insisted on keeping the primitive equipment, trusting her human senses as much as the advanced alien sensors. They're not just adapting anymore, she announced to the gathered military and scientific leaders. They're evolving. Admiral Chen stood at the back of the lab, arms crossed. Explain. Maya gestured at the specimen, and the holographic displays zoomed in to show molecular structures shifting and reforming in real time. The Void Swarm isn't just learning our tactics, it's fundamentally changing its biological and physical structure to counter them. Those nuclear detonation patterns we used. They've developed a way to absorb the energy. The railgun attacks. Their outer membrane now shifts to deflect kinetic impacts. High Commander Selvaron's crystalline form trembled slightly. Then we have failed, if they can adapt to even human unpredictability. No, Maya interrupted, a slight smile playing at her lips. We've just been thinking about this all wrong. We've been trying to destroy them. But you can't destroy energy, you can only transform it. She pulled up another display, this one showing data from the initial encounters with the swarm. Look at their basic nature. They feed on energy, any kind of energy. That's not just their weapon, it's their weakness. They're hungry, always hungry. And that hunger is what drives them to consume entire civilizations. Lieutenant Rodriguez leaned forward, his tactical mind engaging with the scientific puzzle. So we give them indigestion. Better, Maya replied. We give them exactly what they want. More energy than they can handle. But we have to do it in a way they won't expect, won't be able to adapt to in time. The next few hours dissolved into intense planning. Human scientists worked alongside Alliance engineers, combining technologies in ways neither civilization had considered before. Maya's team discovered that while the Void Swarm could adapt to any single form of energy, they struggled to handle multiple types simultaneously, especially when those energies interacted in quantum unstable ways. But time was running out. The main body of the swarm had adapted to their previous tactics and was pressing forward again, consuming star systems at an accelerating pace. The combined human alliance fleet was being pushed back, losing ground and ships in every engagement. The breaking point came at the Battle of Arcturan Gate. The swarm had cornered the fleet near a dying star, their newly evolved defenses shrugging off both conventional weapons and alliance energy beams. Ships were falling one by one, their crews fighting to the last moment against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. That's when Maya's voice cut through the command channel. "Admiral, we're ready." Chen looked at the tactical display, where a third of her remaining fleet was already coded in red, destroyed or disabled. "Whatever you're going to do, Doctor, do it fast." Initiating Project Prometheus, Maya announced. The human ships began what looked like a fighting retreat, drawing the swarm toward specific coordinates. Alliance vessels moved into supporting positions, their advanced sensors feeding targeting data to the human fleet. At first, it seemed like just another desperate tactical maneuver. Then Maya activated the device her team had created, a hybrid of human particle accelerator technology and Alliance quantum field generators. It didn't look impressive, just a series of satellites deployed in a precise geometric pattern. But as they powered up, something extraordinary happened. The satellites began generating multiple forms of energy: electromagnetic, gravitational, nuclear, and quantum, all precisely calibrated to interact in ways that created cascading reactions. The void swarm, driven by their insatiable hunger for energy, couldn't resist the feast being offered. "They're taking the bait," Rodriguez reported. "Swarm entities are moving to consume the energy outputs." Maya watched the readings on her displays spike. "Wait for it. Wait for it. Now." The satellites suddenly shifted their output, creating a complex interference pattern that caused the different energy forms to interact in ways that even Alliance scientists hadn't thought possible. The swarm entities that had eagerly absorbed the energy found themselves unable to process the conflicting forces tearing through their structures. For the first time since they had emerged from deep space, the void swarm knew confusion. Their collective consciousness, faced with energy it couldn't adapt to or control, began to fragment. Individual entities started to break down, their highly evolved structures turning against them. "It's working," Maya exclaimed, her eyes fixed on the sensor readings. "Their adaptation mechanism is trying to counter multiple forms of energy simultaneously, but the quantum interference is preventing them from achieving a stable form. They're literally tearing themselves apart." The battle turned into a rout. As the swarm's collective consciousness fractured, their coordinated attacks devolved into chaos. But this time, it was a chaos that favored the defenders. Human and Alliance ships pressed their advantage, herding the increasingly disorganized swarm entities into the fields of destructive energy. In the aftermath, as rescue operations began and damage reports came in, Maya stood in her lab, studying the remains of their captured specimen. It had disintegrated during the attack, leaving behind only traces of exotic particles that defied analysis. Admiral Chen joined her, looking at the empty containment field. "You know they'll be back," she said quietly. "What's left of them will try to adapt to this too." Maya nodded. "Yes, but now we know their fundamental weakness. They can adapt to anything, except their own nature. Sometimes, the greatest strength can also be the greatest vulnerability. Humans understand that better than most. Because we've had to overcome our own nature so many times," Chen mused. "Exactly. And we'll be ready for them next time. Because that's another thing humans are good at, learning from both victory and defeat." As if to emphasize her point, human and Alliance scientists were already gathering in the lab, sharing ideas for improving their energy weapon. The void swarm had taught them all an important lesson. Adaptation wasn't just about becoming stronger. It was about understanding your enemy, and sometimes, understanding yourself. The price of victory. The holographic war room aboard ESS Prometheus had never been so crowded. Human officers stood shoulder to shoulder with Alliance representatives, all eyes fixed on the massive strategic display showing the remaining Void Swarm's position. Though Maya's weapon had devastated their forces, the surviving entities had retreated to regroup, growing stronger as they consumed entire star systems to rebuild their numbers. Admiral Chen studied the tactical projections with a grim expression. They're learning, adapting their entire biological structure to resist the energy weapon. Dr. Patel, what's your assessment? Maya stepped forward, her usual confidence tempered by exhaustion. She hadn't slept in days, working alongside Alliance scientists to analyze the swarm's evolution. The weapon won't work again, not in its current form. They've developed a distributed consciousness structure. Even if we overload some of them, the others will adapt and survive. Then we need something bigger, Rodriguez suggested. Hit them with more energy than any living thing could possibly adapt to. High Commander Xelveron's crystalline form pulsed with concern. The energy requirements would be astronomical. Even our most advanced reactors couldn't generate that kind of power. A silence fell over the war room as the implications sank in. Then Captain James Martinez, commander of the ESS Hyperion, spoke up. What about a star? All eyes turned to him. Martinez pointed to a specific section of the holographic map. The swarm is gathering here, in the Carina Nebula, using the energy from young stars to rebuild. But there's an aging blue supergiant in the system, Eta Carinae. It's already unstable. If we could trigger a premature supernova, the energy release would be beyond anything the swarm has encountered. Maya finished, her mind racing with calculations. They wouldn't be able to adapt fast enough. But she hesitated, looking at the surrounding star systems. The blast radius would be enormous. Any inhabited worlds in the region would need to be evacuated. Chen completed. How long? Maya and the Alliance scientists huddled over the calculations. The star is already approaching the end of its life cycle. With the right trigger mechanism, we could induce the supernova within 48 hours. But the evacuation would take at least 72. We can't just sacrifice innocent worlds, Xelveron protested. No, Chen agreed. We need a way to hold the swarm in position while the evacuation proceeds. Which means, she paused, looking at her assembled fleet commanders, a blocking force. The implications were clear. Any ships that stayed behind to delay the swarm would be caught in the supernova. It would be a one-way mission. I'll do it, Martinez said immediately. The Hyperion's fusion core is damaged anyway. We've been running on backup power since the last battle. Other commanders stepped forward, both human and Alliance, volunteering their ships and crews. Chen looked at each of them, seeing the same determination in alien faces that she saw in human ones. Here, at the end, the differences between their species seemed to fade away. The next 48 hours were a blur of desperate activity, while evacuation ships raced to rescue as many people as possible from the threatened systems. Maya and her team worked with Alliance engineers to modify a series of quantum warheads that would trigger the supernova. The blocking force, 12 human ships and 8 Alliance vessels, prepared for their final mission. Standing on the bridge of the Hyperion, Martinez watched the evacuation ships jump to hyperspace, carrying the last refugees to safety. Behind his ship, Eta Carinae pulsed ominously, its unstable core primed by the quantum warheads. Ahead, the Void Swarm approached, a dark tide that threatened to consume everything in its path. All ships, battle formations, he ordered. Let's give these energy vampires something to remember us by. The next 6 hours would be remembered as one of the most heroic last stands in human history. The blocking force fought with everything they had, using every trick and tactic they'd learned throughout the war. Ships sacrificed themselves to close gaps in the line. Crews fought on even as their vessels broke apart around them, and the combined fleet held the line just long enough. When the star finally erupted, the explosion was visible across half the galaxy. The Void Swarm, caught in the blast wave, tried desperately to adapt to the overwhelming surge of energy. But there was too much, too fast, too many different types of radiation and particle emissions for even their advanced adaptation abilities to handle. In the war room of the Prometheus, Chen and the others watched in silence as the sensors registered the death of both the blocking force and the main body of the swarm. When the readings finally stabilized, Maya's instruments confirmed what they had hoped. The void swarm had been completely destroyed, their very molecular structure torn apart by the power of the dying star. The victory felt hollow. Chen looked at the list of ships and crews lost in the blocking action, names that would be remembered as heroes by both humanity and the Alliance. Captain Martinez's last transmission played in her mind. The cost doesn't matter if it means everyone else gets to live free. That's what humanity has always fought for. In the days that followed, as both civilizations began to rebuild, something new emerged from the ashes of sacrifice. The Alliance had been changed by their contact with humanity, learning that there was more to strength than technological superiority. And humanity had proven that their place in the galaxy wasn't determined by the advancement of their technology, but by the courage in their hearts and their willingness to stand up for what was right, no matter the cost. A new dawn. 10 years after the Battle of Eta Carinae, the archival chamber of the Stellar Alliance had changed. Where once it held only the pristine records of advanced civilizations, now it included a section dedicated to human history, art, and culture. Grand Archivist Zenaval, who had first suggested seeking humanity's help, stood before a memorial wall where the names of those lost in the blocking force were inscribed in both human and Alliance scripts. The memorial's centerpiece was a simple hologram showing the last moments of the ESS Hyperion, Captain Martinez's ship holding the line against the void swarm as Eta Carinae erupted behind it. The image had become a symbol of the unity between humans and the Alliance, a reminder that courage knew no species. Still contemplating the past, old friend. Admiral Chen's voice came from behind her. The human officer had aged in the past decade, silver threading through her dark hair, but her eyes remained as sharp as ever. Remembering those who brought us our future, Zenaval replied, her tentacles moving in a gesture of respect. The Council meets today to discuss the human petition. Many of us believe it's long overdue. The petition in question was humanity's application to join the Stellar Alliance as full members, despite not meeting the traditional technological requirements. It had sparked intense debate among the Alliance species, challenging centuries of established tradition. The Council chamber was packed when they arrived. Representatives from all Alliance species were present, along with a human delegation led by Dr. Maya Patel, now Earth's chief scientific advisor. The chamber's design had been modified to accommodate human biology, another sign of the changes the past decade had brought. First speaker Cole Wren, his scales now bearing the ceremonial markings of a veteran of the Void War, called the session to order. We gather today to consider an unprecedented proposal. Never in our history have we admitted a species that has not achieved Type IO civilization status. Yet here we are, discussing exactly that. Maya stepped forward to address the Council. The years had matured her, but she still carried the same enthusiasm for discovery that had helped them understand the Void Swarm's weakness. Honorable Council, we don't come before you claiming technological parity. Earth is still centuries behind many of your achievements, but we believe the measure of a civilization isn't just in its technological advancement, but in its capacity to contribute to the greater good of all sentient life. She gestured to the data displays showing the developments of the past decade. Human scientists working alongside Alliance researchers had made breakthrough discoveries by combining their different approaches. Earth's military theories had revolutionized Alliance defensive strategies. Most importantly, the example of human determination had inspired a renaissance of innovation throughout Alliance space. We offered you something you didn't even know you needed, Maya continued. Not superior technology or advanced knowledge, but a reminder that progress isn't always linear. Sometimes the greatest advances come from stepping back and seeing things from a different perspective. Zenaval moved to the center of the chamber, if I may speak. At Cole Wren's nod, she continued, When I first discovered humanity, I was fascinated by their potential. But I never imagined how profoundly they would change us. We had become complacent in our advancement, believing that technological superiority was the measure of all things. Humans taught us that true strength lies not in the power of our weapons or the sophistication of our computers, but in the diversity of our approaches and the courage to try what seems impossible. The debate continued for hours, but in the end, the vote was nearly unanimous. Humanity would join the alliance, not as junior partners to be uplifted, but as equals who had earned their place through actions rather than achievements. As the chamber erupted in celebration, Chen found herself standing next to a group of young Alliance officers studying at Earth's newly established Interstellar Academy. They were discussing human history, particularly fascinated by how a species could advance so far while still maintaining their capacity for what they called lateral thinking. "Admiral," one of them asked, their crystalline form shimmering with curiosity, "is it true that humans once believed they were alone in the universe? How did you maintain hope of finding others?" Chen smiled, remembering her own childhood dreams of the stars. "We didn't just hope. We prepared. Every story we told about aliens, every movie we made about space, every scientific theory we developed about other worlds, they were all ways of reaching out into the darkness and saying, 'We're here, we're ready, and when we meet you, we want to be worthy of the galaxy we share.'" Later that evening, standing at the viewport of the Prometheus, Chen watched Earth's first embassy ship dock with the Alliance station. Its hull bore both human and Alliance markings, a visible symbol of their new partnership. The ship's name, visible in glowing letters, seemed particularly appropriate: Unity. Maya joined her at the viewport, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "To the future," she proposed. "To all our futures," Chen corrected, including in her toast the Alliance officers working alongside her crew. "And to remembering that no species has all the answers, but together, we might just figure them out." The end.